borrowed time. Slipshod maintenance, antique computers, a useless radar, and ground staff who couldn't care less. It was only going to be a matter of time. The 3rd of April, 6:51 was the day their luck ran out. AFIT-12 was a routine short flight between West Germany and Edinburgh. It was flown by a 23-year-old Hamtix 575B. The flight was full. Thunderstorms near the destination pushed the planned route south over the mountains. This was the first factor in the chain of disaster. Northern Air Traffic Control had no idea where the storms actually were, neither did the crew of AFIT-12. The plane's weather radar was old and not able to detect the subtleties of air movements. The plane ploughed into a microburst and plummeted. Microbursts are fast-ascending columns of air created by storms. The flight crew were caught completely unawares. They pushed their heavy plane upwards and requested clearance for a higher altitude. Unfortunately, Air Traffic Control had another plane blocking their path, and the request was denied. Radar coverage over the highlands was poor. Their weather radar, tuned to the size of raindrops, was also quite antiquated and didn't cover the mountains all that well. The computer system was primitive and unable to display weather information on the traffic screens. The controller was quite unaware as he directed AFIT-12 into a ferocious storm. Bounced around inside the storm, the pilots gradually lost situational awareness. The first of several ground proximity warnings sounded, moments before the second causal factor leapt out onto the hard-worked pilots and sparked a series of catastrophic events from which they were unable to recover. In the rush to get the plane away on time, a cargo pallet in the forward hold had not been secured properly. In heavy turbulence, it ripped off the partially closed clamp and rammed into the cargo door. Wide-bodied passenger aircraft of this period had large clamshell-like doors. The earlier plug-type doors that sealed themselves by air pressure had been abandoned for speed and ease of loading. The ground crew also failed to confirm whether the door-locking mechanism was fully closed. The pallet rammed into the door and opened up a small gap. The air pressure ripped open the door. The door was torn off its hinges into the slipstream, narrowly missing the starboard engine. The recalcitrant cargo pallet was flung out of the plane, dislodging one of the wing slats. While the plane still had ample lift, the change in aerodynamics caused the plane to roll continuously to the right, unless corrected by the already busy pilots. The abrupt loss of pressure prompted a mayday call. Air traffic control advised them to climb and turn to the west away from the mountains. The ground proximity warnings sounded again. They were perilously close to the lower slopes of Mount Hamtix, flying more or less blind, with the cabin open to the atmosphere. The co-pilot reported that the rudder was inoperative. Neither pilot was able to move it. This was to remain a puzzle for many years. Air crash investigators could find nothing wrong with the rudder cabling or the hydraulics, despite damage to the cabin floor. It was later determined that water from a cracked seal in the actuators had frozen solid, then vanished in the subsequent investigation. The plane evidently broke cloud just before reaching an abrupt cliff face. The co-pilot reacted quickly, but the heavy, fast-moving plane didn't respond well. The accident report concluded that the loss of lift at the starboard wing and the rudder failure compounded the lack of response from the plane. There were widespread changes to all aspects of civil aviation in Gerbania and beyond as a result of the crash. New wind shear detecting radar was brought in with far better radar coverage in the highlands. The Hamtix 575 fleet was phased out and new aircraft were built with plugged doors. The report was exceptionally scathing of the West Germany ground crew. Widespread sackings and wholesale changes occurred. The air traffic control computers were finally replaced 25 years later with the then state-of-the-art National Computer Network. Despite later epic disasters in the air and space, AFIT-12 remains Gerbania's worst single transport accident, with the loss of 291 lives.